Okay, welcome to this short video clip on finding the circumference of a circle. We're going to look at three questions. One where we have been given the diameter, one where we've been given the radius, and then we'll look at an application question as well, a GCSE question. Before we begin though, we need to write down what the formula is to work out the circumference of the circle. Now the circumference is the mathematical way of saying the perimeter, all the way around the outside of our circle, and we can find that using the formula that the circumference equals pi times the diameter. Okay, and if I'm going to type that into a calculator, pi times the diameter. So we've written down our formula. That's how we find the circumference of a circle. Now, before we begin trying to work it out, the very first thing we should do when we see a circle is write down the radius and write down the diameter. Now, the diameter goes from one side of a circle to the other, going through the centre. So we can see this line here, it goes through the centre, it goes from one side of the circle to the other, and it's 12 centimetres. That is the diameter. The radius, I'm still going to write down anyway because I might want to use it for another calculation later. The radius is half the length of the diameter and is the distance from the centre to the circumference, to the edge. And it is half of the diameter, so that is 6 centimetres. Okay, so now I've done that, I can now work out the distance all the way around the outside, the circumference. And that is pi times the diameter. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to swap the letter D for what I've determined D to be, which is 12. So it is pi times 12, which if you type that into a calculator will give you the first answer, 12 pi. Okay. If the question says leave your answer in terms of pi, that is how you're going to leave it. If it doesn't say that, then you need to press the SD button on your calculator to get an answer. And in this case we're going to have 37.7 centimetres to one decimal place. Now it's centimetres because it's a distance all the way around the outside. If we were working out the area, the bit inside, it would be centimetres squared. But this is only one dimensional, so it's just centimetres. Okay, so we have a look at another question then, and this time we've not been given the diameter, we've been given something different. Okay, we've been given the distance from the centre to the edge, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down what the radius and the diameters are. This is a radius from the centre to the circumference, and that is 4 centimetres. The diameter is 8 centimetres, because it is double the length of the radius. Now we can get to working out the distance around the outside. Pi times the diameter. Swap out D for the number, so it's pi times 8. Type it into a calculator, it tells me 8 pi. And if I've got to go one step further, then I press the SD button on my calculator, which is located just above the cancel button on the calculator, and in this case I'm going to get an answer of 25.1 centimetres. Okay, so nice and easy. But what happens when we've been given a question where we've got to read a bit through and we've been given lots of information to work out, such as a GCSE question? Okay, so if we have a look at this question, it's quite a long question. So we've got Julie has a garden in the shape of a semicircle with a diameter 40 metres. Julie asks a stonemason to build a wall around the edge of the garden. The stonemason tells Julie the cost. So the total cost equals £14.82 per metre plus £140 for each day's work. The stonemason takes 4 days to build the wall. Work out how much Julie paid. Okay, so there's a lot of information to take in there. The very first thing we should do is we should draw a diagram. So I'm just going to move the camera down so you're not going to be able to see the question, but I will keep reading things out to you. Okay, so we've got a garden in the shape of a semicircle. The diameter is 40 meters, so all the way across goes 40 meters. Okay, so from here we could do some work out. We could work out the distance around the edge of this semicircle. Now, if it was a whole circle, we'd be doing pi times d, but because this is only half of a circle, we're going to go pi times d over 2, and that's going to get us the distance around the curved part of the this semicircular garden. But before I can even do that, we need to write down what the radius and the diameter are, just in case we need to use them later. So we know the diameter is 40, the radius is half of that, so the radius is 20 meters. Okay, so pi times d, well, this is actually going to be pi times 40 divided by 2. So pi times 40 is 40 pi, divide that by 2, that's 20 pi. Okay, so we've got 20 pi, now that's the curved bit, and we have to add 40 to that, so the distance around the edge is going to be 20 pi plus 40, because that's still part of the garden. Okay, so if we do that, 20 pi plus 40, if we type that into a calculator, okay, the calculator will give us an answer, and it will say that it is 102.83 to 2 decimal places meters, all the way around the outside of this garden. Okay, now to work out the cost. So total cost is £14.82 per metre plus 140 for each day's work. So we know how many metres it is, we know how much it's going to cost per metre. So if we multiply what we've got, our answer, so really important here as well that you don't get rid of the answer on your calculator screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press answer times 14.82. Okay, so it's 102.83 times 14.82. Type it into a calculator, we get £1,523.97p. Okay, so that's just for the wall itself. We haven't yet factored in the £140 for each day's work. It takes 4 days to build it. So I've also got to do 4 times 140, which is going to give me £560. And then we've got to add the two together to get the total cost of what Julie paid. And again, we've got a calculator, so we can use a calculator. And that total cost, it cost Julie £2,083.97p. So there you have it. That's how we find the circumference of a circle, and that's how we can apply it to a problem in an exam question or out in the general world.